years, and I heard Sue Sponte spoken countless times as it was the motto of the school. It means of one's own will. In word, I understand it. In action, I work to practice it daily. What I do know for sure in my 45 years of life is that we can dream, we can think, we can envision, but those things will never manifest without action. Of one's own will speaks different to me now more than ever. To me, it means we have a duty, a responsibility to take action on our beliefs and core values to seek and accomplish our goals or vision. This is exactly why, or this is exactly what Starr did for me and for thousands of young men during his 41 years at the Fenn School. It was his mission to help young boys grow into men. He told me when I graduated he was upset that he never got to coach me. He was my advisor, my teacher, and even my boss at Star Camps, but never my coach. Yet he was mistaken. He was my coach every day. He was constantly finding ways to get the best out of me, support me, and help me be a better human. It wasn't about the wins or the awards or the accolades. It was about the process for him because he knew that if the process was built on standards, the results would follow. He gave me opportunities to lead, to grow, to make mistakes, to lose, to trust, and most importantly, to connect. To connect Star to his Nike shoe, in keeping with the theme, I have chosen the Nike Air Trainer 1 in Midnight Navy and University Red to represent him. The Nike Air 1 was designed by Tinker Hatfield, an architect turned shoe designer. He's known for many famous Nike creations, but most notably the Jordan 3 version, which Jordan himself has said it may be among his favorite of all the evolutions. Tinker created an all-around training shoe that in the 1980s wasn't even a thing yet. The original design was actually popularized and first worn by John McEnroe, who inspired other athletes like Agassi and Bo Jackson. The shoe was a shift in footwear. It changed the training shoe landscape forever, and Star has done the very same for the development of young men. I am so honored and excited to have him on today to share with you his lessons learned for long-term athletic development. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Star.
Thank you. Geez, wow, what an introduction. Being compared to a Nike sneaker, that's high praise. That's the best.
Look,
Ben, thanks a lot. It's really an honor to be on it. We've got a real issue in our society about what sports means, where it's going, and where the adults are leading our children. And this is truly one of my most important hobby horses that I think about. You really start with, why do we play sports? I mean, you made your life out of it, you know, but it is such a vital piece of our society and such a vital piece for a lot of young people's development. But why? What's it all about? I mean, we think about it, on the professional level, it's the entertainment industry. It's an incredible industry, but it's not much, from an entertainment point of view, it's not much different from, scripted TV or the cable stations or Hollywood or whatever. You don't know the outcome because it's not scripted, but it is entertainment. But why do we play? You played your whole life. I'm sure you're still playing. I mean, I played. I just got off the pickleball court, the old man thing. And pickleball is, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. What I think that has a lot to do with where we need to go. Pickleball and recess is a little piece that I want to talk about. But we play these things. Why do we play them? And what is the value for kids? That's really the puzzle piece that I think that we really need to get to, because there's so much that sports can give young people and us, but mainly young people, I mean, from a developmental point of view, we've really got to get back to the court, the rink, the field as a classroom for life. Because
Yes.
no question in my mind, it is the best teacher of life skills that we have, far better than the art or math or science, social studies, which I taught classroom, from a life skills point of view, because it both creates young people's character, but more importantly, it reveals their character. And I think that that opportunity for us to teach kids in that environment, because the grades come back really quickly, not just in the wins and losses, but how did you deal with a difficult situation? How did you deal when it got tough? How did you deal, when you got tired, when you got frustrated? And those are really the skills that, you took with your life, I took with my life. I had the amazing opportunity working at this all boys school to coach almost 1,300 games because because we only went to ninth grade, and not only could I be athletic director, but I got to coach. I coached soccer, basketball, baseball for 41 years, and the thing I miss most in retirement is the coaching,
Yeah.
and the coaching, not so much from the wins and losses, but from the relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the coaches that you loved
Yeah.
and what they taught you. Those are relationship driven,
Yeah.
and that really is the piece. So you think about what sports gives us. All right, there's obviously fitness, the health aspect, which is so important with a country that's a third or almost a half obese. That staying physically active and lifelong physically active, the relieving of stress, of anxiety, of just going out there and doing it. And I think team sports especially is vital for kids. The individual sports are wonderful, but the pressure on the individual, it's the team aspect, I think, that really can do it. Learning how to work with others, which is maybe one of the most important skills that we have, is, that's what a team is all about. So many kids these days think that Galileo was wrong, that the world does not revolve around the sun, it revolves around them.
Yeah. Right.
They've been told since they were little kids, you're the best, you're the greatest. Here's a trophy for showing up. I'll never forget, my granddaughter came back. She was probably 6 or 7 with a trophy. I said, wow, what'd you get a trophy for? She looked at me and goes, I have no idea. You know, it's sort of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just the showing up. I mean, somehow that's the reason kids, why do they play? When little kids play, why do they play?
Yeah.
It it's fun. It brings them incredible joy, and that's just we don't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
That's really the most important thing.
Mm.
Even professional athletes. I get to watch the Boston Celtics all the time. And Jason Tatum, he just talks about, I just love being out there. I love playing. I mean, that's, he's the top 10 basketball player on the planet, but he does it because he loves it.
Yeah.
I'm sure LeBron James is playing still because he loves it. I'm sure he doesn't need the cash. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
amazing piece. Um, the other parts of sports, learning how to win, which is important, but much more importantly, because you learn way more, is how to lose.
Yeah.
Kids need to learn how to lose. And they also need to learn, and adults, this is where adults are screwing them up, that if you lose, it was, why do we bother playing? Because we lost.
Mm.
I hear kids saying we shouldn't have bothered to play because we lost. Somebody's not teaching. Like, the joy is playing. And the competition, what makes competition fun is you don't know who's going to win or lose. Somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. But if you left it all out there, that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the puzzle piece that we just don't get right. I had
Mm-hmm.
a really interesting years ago conversation. This guy, Alfie Kohn, is an author, and he was touting his book No Contest, where he was saying the evils of competition. The competition is evil. We got to get it out of our society. And then only thing that's important is working together. Well, on a team, you work together. But competition done right, stress
Mm-hmm.
stretches people to an extent, stretches athletes to an extent, and brings out their best. And even when they lose, it gives them striving for more. When they win, the joy of that, and also then how do you keep it going?
Yeah.
Competition is, we're a capitalist society. It's all about competition. If my athletic shoe is better than your athletic shoe, you're not going to, same in your business. If somebody opens a gym and they do a better job than you, you got to do it. It forces you to do the best job that you can do.
Yep.
It's really healthy. Kids also they need to learn at a young age how to give their all. Push, because kids these days, there's not a lot of pushing. There's not a lot of kids doing chores at home. There's not a lot of kids, they're on devices.
Yeah.
The phone is the worst thing that we ever invented for kids. It is a disaster. And luckily, I think all schools this year fed school, the kids walk in, they put them in these pouches. By the way, if we had invented those pouches, we'd be billionaire. I mean, what a genius idea. They lock them away and then unlock them at the end of the day. Like, why did I not come up with that? That one was an easy one.
Softball.
And, sports gets them active, creating an identity of who they are, and feeling good about that identity. And sports can really do that, and just the pure, and here is maybe the most important thing they need to learn that I think is really lacking is how to be resilient. So many athletes and sadly, so many adults, they get knocked down. They just stay down.
Yeah.
Or they quit, or they blame. How many times, Ben, you've been, it's the referee's fault. Now I'm refereeing now, and I always tell my kids, you got to put yourself in a place to win. You can't ever let the it's never the referee's fault.
Yeah.
It's your opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to make that opportunity. That's a fool's game. That's just being on the ref, blaming on the sun. The sun was in my eye,
Yeah.
I always love when, in school, two kids would be playing one-on-one in basketball outside my office, and one kid would beat the other. And you know what the kid who lost would generally say? I love this. I wasn't trying. I wasn't trying. So not only does it, it's not legitimate that this other kid won. For their own egos, they can say, well, I didn't try. Instead of facing and saying, wow, you beat me.
Yeah.
And that's part of growing up.
Yeah.
To lose and to be able to understand that's part of life. And you learn way more from losing than you do from winning.
If you're willing and open to it.
Yeah. And but it's also how you craft it. You come back the next day if you're coach, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about coaches, because I think that's where we've lost, parents are always a little, they want the best for their kid and they're going to do whatever they're going to do. But the coaches are the ones who really need to make the difference, to deal with things with their emotions. I think that's, you hear these kids who, are, a lot of people in our society are using drugs as a way to not feel, or quote unquote feel better. And learning how to deal with those emotions and learning about being resilient and getting knocked down and getting back up, and that's okay. And that you feel good about yourself when you can do that, and not good about yourself when you can't, is really, really, I think, the important puzzle piece.
If I can interject here, there's a U.S. track and field female who I follow on social media, and she does, oh geez, I think it's the decathlon. So, if you know anything about it, it's multiple events, and you earn a certain number of points, and all those points accumulate. And you know she was at the latest Olympics in London, right? That was the Was that the last Summer Games? Or
No,
was it Paris? It was Paris.
you're just in Paris.
Paris. Oh my gosh. So she's in Paris, and they found a fault in one of her events. And it was, let's just say there's 10 events. It was in the seventh or eighth event that they then revealed to her that she faulted out and she gets 0 points for that event, which essentially took her from in the running to a medal to now nothing.
Right.
She has now 2 or 3 events still remaining. And she has the decision. Does she continue on, knowing that she's not going to have any sort of a chance to medal? She has trained 4 years for this moment, and it's now gone in a split second. Or does she say, I'm done? And she had she had her moment, and it was on camera. Nonetheless, it was on camera when they revealed this to her. She had her moment and obviously was extremely emotional about it and decided to forge on and finish her last 2 or 3 events. And I don't usually post to folks on social media who are more, celebrity-esque, because, I just really don't think they're gonna read it or see it. But I found this tug or this pull to post to her and say, you finishing those events is the win. That's the Olympics. That is what a US Olympian is all about. That is what a role model for female athletes should be.
Right.
That when you are faced with this extreme adversity, and when you are faced with this devastating news, how are you going to be resilient? How are you going to deal with the loss? And I just said, you are, and you know, I am proud that you represent the United States as an Olympian
Absolutely.
because of that.
Yes, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's giving your best effort and letting the chips fall where they may. And
You
that
know, yeah.
you need to teach kids that. I don't. You're not hard. Some people are. I've just we all know those unbelievably gritty athletes that just. But for most of us, we need to be taught. You get knocked down, you get back up again. The famous Teddy,
Yeah.
you know, the famous piece about the man in the arena.
Yes.
Again,
I have the
and that
quote in my office.
yeah, I mean would do that with my classes all the time because, it's not about getting. We're all going to get knocked down by life. Every single one of us.
Yep.
Is do we have the ability to get back up? And we need to teach, and that's one of the things that sports can teach kids
Yep.
as a life skill. I mean, everybody wants their kids, to be successful and be happy. And it's, sports, that's why it's so important, getting kids into sports and getting them to love it because there's so much they can learn. And
I,
obviously, she didn't just happen upon that. She happened upon that from years of being too tired, but keep going.
yep. I will be the first one to admit that I am a terrible loser. I do not. I I do not. Maybe in some ways that is God's way of continuing to teach me the lessons that I need. But I am envious. So I work with a college baseball team right now, And I tell these guys at least once every season that they are in such a unique position for life playing baseball because they are getting so used to dealing with excuse me, dealing with adversity, dealing with loss, dealing with quote unquote failure every single time they step on the field. You know, in the sports that I played or participated in, it wasn't really it wasn't really like that.
No,
But to be able to
individual sports. Baseball is a team sport, but is an individual sport.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I said when you guys are done with your baseball career, there is no employer that if you walked in there and said, "Look, I'm going to tell you about 35-40% of the time, I'm going to be fantastic for you. I am going to be incredible. I'm going to do what you want. I'm going to do what we say, what the goals are." 65-70% of the time, I'm I'm not gonna hit it. But you should hire me.
I mean, yeah, Ted Williams, the greatest hitter of all time. 6 out of 10 times he failed.
Unreal.
I would tell my players I said the only two sports that I know of that really teaches you about life are golf and baseball. Like what? Lacrosse, hockey, whatever. Because they're all about failure, and it's all about when you make a mistake, how are you going to deal with it? When you strike out, how are you going to deal with
Right.
it? And it's that's and for so much learning how to deal with losing. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd have kids, have a tantrum after losing. I said, you shouldn't be playing. If you can't if you can't deal with losing, go play one of those video games where you always win.
Yeah.
Because that's what life, and to me, it's so important. I mean, get back to why do kids love sports? In for the adults, they see the brass ring and they see the trophies and the college scholarships and all that stuff. Kids see this is fun.
Yeah.
This is what when you were back at Finn, the high point of the day is depending on what they had for lunch was either lunch or getting out there and playing sports because
Yep.
just get me out of the class, get me moving around, let me go hit somebody, let's go do something, like let's go play. That's
Yep.
I play pickleball, and the one of the things that you hear so much about pickleball. What is cool about most of pickleball is you play, you get out there, you play a game, you win or you lose, and then you go on to the next game. You don't really even have you don't like losing, but you go on to the next. You just keep playing. Nobody's really you keep scoring the game, but nobody keeps scoring how many games you win or lose. It's sort of like recess,
Yeah.
which I think we've lost in a lot of our society. But in recess at Fed, when I was working, there still is, the kids for 15, 20 minutes just go play. They don't even keep,
Yep.
whether it's playing touch football or basketball or indoor soccer or this crazy thing we invented, wrestle ball, where they play basically water polo on a wrestling mat, kill each other. They just play.
Yeah.
They don't really the final score. It's the joy of doing it. And that's dirty. That's what brings, I think, makes it so important. But the problem with sports is let we let adults get involved in it. So they always want to make it bigger,
Yeah.
money, this whole club thing, which really started
Yep.
with your primary sport in the old days, hockey, was the first in the New England
Yeah. Oh,
area that,
yeah.
elite, and you guys were playing, NHL schedules as 13-year-olds, running around all
Yep.
over Christendom, with your hockey bags, and your parents are getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and God bless them.
Yeah.
But now every single sport is like that.
Yeah.
It's a club thing. I mean, I see these, and I'm a baseball guy. I see 12-year-olds playing a doubleheader on Saturday and doubleheader on Sunday. And parents are asking me, why is their kid so tired and why is he always injured? I mean, it's the point of ridiculousness. And I say to parents, why don't you just have him not do it? He goes, oh, he wants to do it, and his the other kids will get better than him, and he won't be able to play, and
Hmm.
becomes this parent guilt thing,
Hmm.
and they're dragging these kids to these, and burning them out. I mean, one
Yeah.
sport athletes, you must see it all the time. I mean, later in high school, it's fine to specialize. I mean, but it's any good coach will tell you that they want an athlete that's more than just a one sport guy. So because that they don't get burned out mentally, physically. They have different skill sets with their body. You know,
Yeah.
they're both. You don't know who's going to be good, and it's also when you change the seasons, kids get so excited when it's the new season.
Hmm.
So we just up in the Northeast here, went to hockey, basketball, and wrestling. The kids are fun. Oh my God, they're so excited. And
Yep.
by February, they'll be tired of that and be just dying in the end of March to get out and play lacrosse and baseball and track and just change it up.
Yep. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think finding the joy, that has been brought up in previous podcasts of folks that I've interviewed. And you mentioned the Celtics earlier. I'm very fortunate to be working with a player on the Celtics now. He goes back and forth from Boston to their G League team in Maine, but he was a part of the team last year when they won, and he's got a ring. I mean, it's incredible. And he was talking just a couple months ago about loving playing, just enjoying the practice of playing basketball. And that just kept him going out on the driveway or finding a court, or you know it it is something that I think is overlooked, because kids at now such a young age are looking at sports and equating it to college scholarships. And you and I think very well know how few scholarships are out there, how few will play in college, and how even fewer will play at a professional level.
It is such an the college scholarship thing is the biggest lie. The biggest deception going. All these parents. Oh, he'll get a scholarship. This is his ticket. It's 1% of all athletes get a college scholarship. You know, and then I don't know, from colleges to playing on the professional levels, maybe 2%. It's such the point of the spear that it's we're ruining kids' lives for something that's not even there. And I've been I talked to a fair amount of college athletes, former students and other kids I know, who find college athletics, it's a job,
Yes.
and they don't love it the way they used to love it. That, to me, it always makes me so sad because, you know, we're educators. Whoever. So some team won the Illinois State football championship,
Yep.
and they'll talk to coach. Call him Coach Smith. This coach and that. They don't tell you that he's a biology teacher. And does the lunchroom duty, and it's always it's that puzzle piece that we lose track of, you know, that we are if we're a coach, you're an educator, even on the professional level.
Yeah.
You know, you're teaching, you're trying to get the best out of these people, and hopefully you care about them and want them to be really good people.
Yeah.
That, to me, we've got to get back to that, get away from, these club coaches, aren't educators. They all were very good at what they did.
Mhm.
They're all athletes, and they think that they can coach. And it always makes me sad when I talk to a kid and they're playing club or even playing high school, for the high school. How's it? How's your coach? It's, I can't stand it, or her.
Yeah.
That's just so sad. And there's so much that can be learned.
Yeah.
And the coaches that treat. Let's talk a little bit about coaching, because you deal with athletes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
How those kids love their coach, or love or respect what they're at least trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on that from your perspective?
I think it's very much like what you said. It's a mixed bag. When I talk to, I think the running theme, and I was going to ask this later, and we'll still kind of get to this later, but there is this us versus them massive. That is, you want to talk about the tip of the spear. I think that is the tip of the spear when it comes to long-term athletic development, that we are all jockeying egos and missing the point, no pun intended. And you have, some people say, "Oh, my high school coach doesn't know what the heck they're talking about because they're a biology teacher and they do lunchroom duty." And then you have some that are going, my club coach doesn't even know how to coach. They may know how to play. They talk about this like, great career that they had, but they don't know how to coach. I will tell you personally, watching my kids and their respective coaches, what I am most sad about is that I don't think that they, with the exception of maybe my youngest daughter, when it comes to, so she competes in both volleyball, but horseback, like jumping. So I think she's the only one out of all the coaches that they've had that, with her horseback riding coach, has had an actual coach. The other coaches all lack a little bit of something, and they haven't. I think the best coaches know what their strengths are, know what their weaknesses are, and they look to offset or learn and improve on their weaknesses to be better every season, or even every game for that matter.
Absolutely, you're always that's the whole thing of coaching, an evolution of taking a specific team and then trying to, as you're coaching them, figure out what the the, the chess match of how to get them to the point of, as a team,
Yeah.
to be there, and being willing to adapt to what they are. It's one of those. It's similar to the classroom where I taught great, but the kids all flunked the test,
Yeah.
and I would look at young educators. I'd be like, maybe the test wasn't right. If you taught so great, that you got to teach to what you got,
Yeah.
coach to what you got, and I think that we don't spend enough time talking about what good coaching is. Here, I have 9 points that I feel really strongly. And it was one of the things as an athletic director trying to nurture young coaches. I mean, they got to care about the players in the whole, but not just the team, but the individuals, and let the individuals know that communication. That doing that, they got to be in their communication. They got to be clear. They got to be honest. they've got to be thoughtful. That to me, a lot of coaches just don't communicate. I'll see a kid and who's not playing much. Just said, you were starting, you weren't playing much. Do you know why? He goes, no, coach never told me. Like, players deserve to know what's going on. They got to be patient and got to be calm, especially in the most difficult moments. That's where losing. You see these coaches just losing it. Like, that's the time you got to be calm. You're a role model. They notice everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
You got to, if you got a hair, or you bought a new pair of shoes, the kids know that.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I didn't even know they're paying attention. Passionate. You gotta love what you're doing.
Yeah.
You got to take the time to have a plan for what you're doing and how to teach it and break it down. And so many times, I used to coach with a good friend who I love. He would do these chalk talks. We were doing soccer, and we were doing, corner kick plays. And he'd have this elaborate corner kick play, and you could tell that the kids were just glazed over because you got to know your audience,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to break it. The really best coaches, break it down so that everybody understands what their role is going to be.
Yeah.
And then the hell out of it so that they can do it. Positive feedback. That's the one I really, really feel is lacking. 5-1, 10-1. You're going to do some criticize. You're going to try to tinker, but with the idea of that you're trying to make them better, not
Mm-hmm.
but trying to build them up so that they feel not in a false way, but in a way to make them feel like, because confidence is so much of sports.
Yeah.
So psychological. It's feeling that I can do this, and not getting, we all get down ourselves enough that having somebody that positive feedback is so important.
Yeah.
Bringing energy and joy to practice every day and having some fun with it. And I'll tell you, the best practices I ever ran, and I ran, God, I was thinking about it the other day, probably 10,000 practices in my career.
Wow.
Were the ones when you say, all right, we got to go. And they say, wait a minute, what do you mean we got to go? We just got here. And I'll say, well, we've been here for an hour and a half. But it's this idea of flow where you're so into what you're doing.
Yes.
Passes so quick. We all know it from work.
Yes.
Just the time I got, you're like, holy cow, this is amazing. That's what I loved about my job. And I can remember being a student and you look up at the clock. I said, oh, the clock's broken because I've been here for 2 hours and it only says I've been here 20 minutes. It's that idea of getting into flow. And here's the one I think that I really, people need to figure out is making that last kid on the bench feel just as important as your number one star.
Mm-hmm.
Making it feel like they have a role, they have a part, that they're valued. Because I was that kid on the bench. Because for me, what was weird is I was an athletic director and a coach who was not a great athlete. And most of the athletic directors in the world and a lot of the coaches were great athletes. What's interesting, though, if you look in the professional level, most of the great coaches were not great players.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's really interesting to me. You look at a Terry Francona or Alex Cora in baseball were great players. You look at Red Auerbach or say Phil Jackson. He was a player, but a mediocre player at best.
Mm-hmm.
NFL. Look at Belichick, he's the best coach. He was the best general manager, but he was he never played professional football.
Yeah.
He was a center in college. He loved lacrosse. He was probably a better lacrosse player.
Yeah.
But because I think those people understand when you're not the best, you understand how much harder you have to work and figure that out. So the idea of getting coached, really trying to get coaches and then getting people who were really good at something, but teaching them how to coach and giving them some supervision, which I think a lot of these clubs don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about win-loss record.
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's the piece I think that really is winning is, I mean, we all like to win.
Of course.
I mean, I never played or coached anything in my life where I didn't want to win. All right. Winning's fun.
Yeah.
Winning's easy. Losing's tough. But man, I tell you, kids get a lot out of losing. And how you treat them, and how you deal with them, the kind of person you are as a coach after losing.
Yeah.
I think they're looking at you. And when you're dealing with your coaching and you're dealing with captains, really stressing that the kids look at you. That they're following you. You don't need to coach them. You don't need to criticize them. You just need to be that positive force. And you got to work harder than they work so that they'll work harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think getting back to that is really important.
I've been on both ends of the bench in all different stages of my athletic career. And I can tell you that the to your point, the best coaches that I had were the ones that stressed both ends of the bench equally and just as important. I mean, I think, you know, we part of the reason why I love strength and conditioning is because I have come to realize this is the ultimate equalizer because 300 pounds here in Chicago is 300 pounds in Acton, Mass, where you are, is 300 pounds in Beijing, China. It's 300 pounds. And you either do it or you don't. And it builds character and it reveals so much of what your propensity might be, not only on the field or the court or the ice, but in life. And to your point, sports are the classroom of life. And, I think that I guess my gut tells me, and I'm gonna kind of get verification from you right now, but you initially got your degree in poli science and government because I think that was a passion and a love of yours, and I certainly know that that's what you taught at Fenn for sure. But then you got your master's though in school counseling and guidance, and I think I'm projecting, but I think you understood that you needed to find a way to get through whether they were on the field or in the classroom, but in a way that it was a positive experience to get them to perform at their best.
Yeah, the performance piece, but to me, you really hit on something. I'm glad you thank you for bringing that up, the counseling pieces. But it's my goal every day was try to help kids feel good about who they are as people.
Uh,
In a narcissistic way, not in an egotistical way, but in looking in the mirror, I'm a good person,
yeah.
you know, and I can do good things, and I'm here to do for myself, but also do for others.
Mm,
You can focus on that in our society. Wow. I mean, that's everything we need. And being able to help kids feel good about who they are. Not just so much as a skill, I'm a good writer, I'm a good, basketball free throw shooter, I'm a good track athlete, I'm a good scientist, but I care about people, I help people, I'm fun, I'm a good friend, I'm supportive, I'm reliable. those are the skills that are going to make a difference in people's lives.
Mhm.
That's what's, but it starts with a foundation. They feel good about themselves. And kids who don't feel good about themselves, those are the ones who are heavily using stuff to feel better.
Right.
You get back to, why are kids using drugs, or why are adults using drugs? There's a recreation, there's the adolescents testing things out, but the kids who are really using it is they don't feel good, so they want to feel better. Or the kid who plays video games 24 hours a day, I only feel good when I'm at this video game. I stop playing this video game, I don't feel good about myself anymore. We've got to we've got to attack that.
Mhm.
Or the kid who's overweight, and so won't do anything. That's where we need to try to help them over that and feel good about who they are and that they do have value. And yeah, you may not be the best athlete, or you may not be the best sign. You don't have to be the best, but are you a good person?
Yeah.
That's the piece we forget about, and that is so important. And sports can be such a positive for that. You know, being a teammate is a really important thing, and to try to teach kids how to be good teammates and
Mhm.
create that sort of family positive atmosphere on a team where you've made it, to me as an athlete, on a team sport where you want to win more for your teammates than you want it for yourself. That's the
Mm.
key. Then you've hit the Mount Rushmore. You're there. You've reached the top because you're out there because you care so much about them that you want it for them.
Mhm.
That to me is, wow. You get that going on a team, And again, the Celtics won the championship, but how many of them would say, they were so happy for Al Horford, their teammate, who been in the league a really long time and never won.
Yep.
They wanted it for him,
Yep.
and that sort of feel, that to me is impressive,
Yeah.
because that's what we need to be teaching kids. You know, in your business of strength and conditioning, of getting kids to push their limits and build themselves up and try, and want something and put the time in to do it.
Yeah.
Think just, you know, we've all been given, I've been given a lot in my life. I'm blessed, but the key is to give back. That's really where it's at. What can I do for others? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing. And that, you go to whatever, and you really dig down with some of these coaches, why are you doing it? And ask, nobody ever really asks them, why are you coaching? What is your goal? And I would interview people, they say, well, I want to win a lot of games. But is that your main goal? Yeah. Well, you're not working for me, because
Yeah.
that's not that's great. Yeah, we all want to win. But what's really important?
Yep.
And nobody really asks that. And I think that to me, boy, that is just such the purpose. And I think we need to do, Ben, I think we need to get into a lot of parent education. So, for all the people you train, the kids you train, they're parents, and getting them, what's their role, you know? And instead of asking when the kid gets in the car, did you win or lose? You know, how'd you play? Did you help the team today? Did you have fun today? Asking totally different questions.
Yeah.
I think that is a real.
Yeah. All right. So you bring up parenting, and I think, for those in the Fen community that will watch this, they certainly know your backstory, your history. For those that don't, when you married Kathy, you married her whole family. You know, I At that point, it was all three boys, right? At that
Three
point.
boys, so they were 8, 14, and 16 when we got married.
Okay. So in all of the years that I've known you, I have never heard a bad word spoken about your integration and your involvement in their lives. In fact, all I've heard is how vital of a role that you played. So, what did you both do to facilitate that? And I ask because I'm sure someone might go, well, what does this have to do with long term athletic development? And my response is that many athletes come from integrated homes or separated homes. And this will help the parents, and it will certainly give some insight into a coach, since we were just talking about coaches, now we're talking about parents, that how important the family dynamic role plays in what an athlete shows up for the day or how they show up for the day.
Yeah, it's a thing. I mean, marrying a woman with three children in at age 28 was, you know, it was interesting, to say the least. It was awesome, and I have three amazing stepsons who all were athletes. Two of them played in college. All of them played.
All great athletes,
Very
mind
good,
you.
good athletes and love it. And their kids are playing sports. And I had the joy of coaching my oldest stepson in soccer, and then my second to last year coaching my grandson in soccer. So I did the bookend tour of that. Here's the thing about the parenting. It's easy. I didn't have a biological, you know, piece in the fight. But as a parent, if you can park your own needs and ego at the door,
Mm.
that's the hardest part for most parents.
So, what does that mean?
They want their kids to succeed, but there's a piece of them, they sees themselves through their kids,
Yeah.
and their playing days are over, but you know, the playing days of their kids and seeing themselves through their kids. And, you know, it's, I think the kids feel the pressure. And it's also one of these things where the parents will push their kids in a way that may be just too much. I mean, one of the things my wife Kathy did, with our youngest, who wanted to play, in the spring, wanted to play lacrosse, soccer, and baseball all in the same season. She looked at me and said, "We're picking one. We're not doing all three." And I was like, "Okay, I'll get rid of the crowd. Okay, how about just does baseball?" And it would have been every single night. And it was a really healthy thing for our family, for our kids. But it's one of these things where parents, you know, the sports are for them, backing off and letting the kids, try to make some decisions and being basically the safety net.
Mm.
You know, they're doing a high wire act as adolescents, and our role as parents is basically being the safety net and getting them to try to make good and healthy decisions, but being there when they need some structure and they need, basically say, no, that's not a good idea. Because I think it's really, really important that we see it as we see how much the kids can learn from sports, and we just need to step back and let them experience it and let them have their time.
Hmm.
You know, I think that's really important. And going up to the coach after the game saying, "Thanks, coach," rather than, "Hey, did you think about doing this?" Or like, and just appreciating, thanking the officials, thanking the coaches, for doing the job that they're doing. And when there is an issue, not getting on the phone and calling, but have your kid go and deal with it. That's part of growing up.
Hmm.
And we don't, we tend to want to make, well, we've all heard the phrase snowplow parent, where we push so there's nothing difficult for them with. And then there's, helicopter parent. And the last one, the newest one that the people have told me about is parent as basically sports agent. Going in, and it's like, oh, let's get back. These kids need to learn how to have a hard day. These kids need to learn how to figure some things out. we can't make a clean path because once we're gone, they're not going to have those skills, to deal with life. We're basically preparing kids to go out in the world and be happy and healthy and successful, however they term successful. That's our job as educators and as coaches. And if we're making everything, no challenges, no difficult, not a hard day, you know,
Yeah.
and also really listening to them.
Mm.
I think the best thing you can do with your kid is you get in the car, have them pull out their headphones, turn off the radio, no radio, no nothing, ask them a question and wait them out. And sooner or later they'll say, they'll give you something.
Yeah.
Try to get a dialogue and listen rather than I mean, me, I like to pontificate, but just step back and shut up and listen. So important.
Yeah. Having an open dialogue is a earned skill because I think asking the right questions is more difficult than what people think. And I almost truly think that if we can come up with and in a let's say on a global scale at least agree on some questions that parents could and should ask their kids after practices, after games, it may give some more boundaries and guidance. I also think that comes from a leadership standpoint within the organization, within the school, within the 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 family dynamic, and it makes me think of, we were talking about joy earlier that has come up in other podcast episodes. Another topic that has come up in two other episodes was this nature versus nurture. And, you know, you were the head of student life and implemented all kinds of things like, the new boy lunches, the big brother, little brother, the collaborations, even with things outside of sports, like the arts, like with Mrs. Gould. So you made a conscious effort to create this environment. What I guess the question for you is it really nature versus nurture, or is it nature and nurture?
Oh, it's definitely nature and nurture.
Yeah.
Kids are going to be who they are. That's one of the things. We're not changing who they are. The key is for us is to try to make them better at who they are.
Yeah.
They're wired the way they're wired. They're you're not changing who people are. You can make them better. There's no question about it. You can sand off some of those edges, but also exposing them to different things. I mean, one of the things I'm hoping to do in retirement is for Fen is to be able to tell people your story about how you became an athlete and what you did with your thing. We've had kids who've, I had a kid who was a very good athlete, and he had to do pottery as an art, and he told me he wasn't going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, you are, because that's just the way we roll around here, and became a professional potter, making pots, and he's a ceramicist. He's amazing, and he's just exposing kids to different things. Getting as every kid at our school was in a play. And that exposing kids to that sort of thing. I love when kids try new sports. Try something different. And you know, we lose 70% of our athletes after the age of 13 in our society
Mm,
because
yep.
they burn and they get tired of it or they didn't have success with it. And what do you do? It's easy to service the great athlete. Okay, I've coached some pretty incredible athletes. It's not hard to service those kids.
Yep.
It's servicing all the athletes and making the kid who's not that great feel good and enjoy it. because they may not be great, but they may enjoy it just as much as the kid who is great. That's what we forget. The joy of sport isn't necessarily how good you are. I'm the living, breathing example of that, of how much I love sports, and I was never a great athlete. And do we all want to be great athletes? Oh my God, who wouldn't want to be? It's interesting. I was at a parent thing many, many years ago and did what I call a blind poll. Everybody close their eyes. And I said to the adults in the room, it was mostly fathers, a coaching thing. How many of you thought, if things had turned out better and you had a little more luck or this or that, you could go to college or even professional athlete? And almost every hand went up in the room, even though there's no possibility. It just, but that was their that fantasy still lives within them. The key is we can't bring that to our kids.
Mhm.
No, we got to step back and let them have their time.
Yeah.
You know, and ask them the questions, and also look at them. And you see when they're run down and they're burnt. So you know what, you can't go to practice tonight. You need to crash. Or you might need to study for that math test, and you know not making healthy decisions as the adult, and having dinner with your kids.
Mm.
I mean, I know so many families that it is, it's like grab and go. It's like a fast food restaurant, and
Yeah.
they're never together. And yeah, we have busy lives. It's good to keep kids busy, but there should be some times when you all sit down. To me, I'm a big family dinner guy kind of person, and that's just having that time. And how many times have we gone to a restaurant, Ben, and you see that everybody has their device out.
Right, right.
That's the other thing, with kids. We got to get them off the darn devices. That's
Yeah.
sports is so great, getting them moving around and working out and talking with other kids. And, you know, I mean, I remember, all these kids, the hockey tournaments and the lacrosse tournament. The thing they remember most is either the pool in the hotel or the hallway hotel playing knee hockey or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what they remember most.
Yep.
It's just another tournament for these kids, but oh, yeah, remember the time we played knee hockey and that, or we played dodgeball in the pool, or in the pool at the Ramada Inn or whatever. I mean, that's what they remember.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, obviously I run a business and people walk through the door and they I think automatically assume that, my goal is to squeeze the most juice out of the can as possible. And when they go, well, how many days should my, little Johnny be training? My first question is always, well, what is little Johnny's schedule? Because I can't answer that without knowing the full picture. And they go, well, they got this practice on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They got Tuesday, Thursday private training here, and then on Sunday they got this, and and so they go. So we're trying to figure out when we're going to fit this in, and I I pause and I kind of chuckle and I go, it may not be a good time to fit this in. I go, when is little Johnny gonna have time to be little Johnny? And they're kind of taken aback by it. And I said, I want to be clear. I'm only saying this because I care about his long term development. I'm not saying this because I don't want to work with little Johnny. I'm saying this because I honestly think he's better on a playground or in a cul-de-sac than he is with me right now. I actually, funny enough, I was last week going back and forth with someone whose son is, I think, 8 years old,
Oh,
and it was a really good conversation. And as we spoke about earlier, parents truly just care. They just want the best for their kids, and they said that all of his friends made the travel team, and he was the only one that didn't. and he really wants to make it next season. So, what can we do to basically help him with that? And, my response was play another sport. Like, sign up for indoor because it was baseball. I said, sign up for indoor soccer. It'll be great for his footwork for baseball. I said, sign up for like a rec league basketball because it'll be great for hand-eye coordination and multi-directional movement, and that'll only help his baseball. And I also said, he's 8. He's got plenty of time. And I said, I also want you to understand, eventually I would love to have him here and train here. But, I think people need to prioritize kids being kids a little bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, the idea of an 8-year-old travel team in baseball just makes me chuckle to begin with. But it's because it's because fathers want to do it.
Yeah.
And this, let's come out every Sunday, play pickup. I mean, the idea of pickup just it's lost on these kids. If they don't have a uniform, there's not an umpire. They're like, what am I doing here, kind of thing. And the idea of practice. I mean, most of these leagues they just play.
Yes.
Practice is where you learn so much. And if you want a really good practice, it's so much more fun. But these people travel. I mean, I know some people have kids in this field hockey circuit in the Northeast
Mm,
where they had to do 2 weekends in a row in Maryland. So they'd be in Maryland, and come home Sunday night, at midnight, and the next week and go back to Maryland for another time. Like you can't have a tournament up here. Like we got to like, it's just it. Well, they got to get seen by scouts and this and that. It's just, and this is field hockey where there's no, they're not going to become professional field hockey. They hope to play in college, I guess, but
right.
even so, it's gotten so crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, my kid loves it. It's social and I guess it also becomes you're only getting the people coming to the door that can afford it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's that whole puzzle piece that all these clubs are out to make a dollar.
Absolutely.
Well,
For sure.
you're a capitalist. I agree with it, but I don't really like when we treat kids as a commodity.
Yeah.
And I think there are promises made or implied that that's just not true.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not going to, and may end up quitting and you know finding stuff to do. You know, how do we not burn these kids out,
Yeah.
but also help them develop? And I'm sure the kid wants to be on the travel team. So it makes me sad feeling like geez, they really have to cut him maybe for whatever reason. But it
Yeah.
finding places for kids to play and really enjoy playing and getting off the screens, more programs where kids can really you know realize their potential and have fun with it.
Yeah. So, main last question I have for you kind of goes back to one, why I started this podcast, which was to get into the arena of educating athletes, parents, coaches, organizations, and start shifting how we are handling and successfully navigating long-term athletic development. It also goes back to sue sponte, which is, of my will to do this. I feel like we need some sort of a actionable step because it's one thing for you and I to be chatting for this amount of time, which I would do any day of the week with you, Star. it's another thing to take this and actually implement it. So, as I alluded to earlier, I think the biggest barrier and challenge we face in long-term athletic development is this us versus them. And it is a club or travel team prioritizing what they do, over a school's objective, or an athlete pitted against another athlete, or school versus another school, organization versus school. Everyone's jockeying their ego. So, as an athletic director, you had to juggle all that, from athletes to parents to schools and organizations. So, I, I suppose, what is an actionable step or steps to start integrating as opposed to continue to segregate?
I'm not that confident about integration because there's too much money out there.
Mm,
These clubs are, they need to make a point for their survival,
mm,
and that's a puzzle piece. I do find, I see kids not playing for their high schools, and those are some of the great memories that kids have.
mhm,
That opportunity to play with the kids. They go to school. I mean, I try to impress upon parents, even at the eighth and ninth grade level, the joy of playing with the kids that you're in school with, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 10 months, 9 months, is so different than just some random group of kids that come together once or twice a week and play.
mhm,
That part of it, I do think that you know schools making sure that their programs have coaches that are really committed and are educators, and that these travel teams, that parents question on these travel teams, well, who's coaching my kid?
mhm.
Supervision do they do? What's the goal of the team? And parents looking in the mirror and really, trying to think out, what, and with their child, if the child's old enough to say, what's our goal here? What do you really want? Why are we doing this? You know, and do we really want to give up every single Saturday for the whole year when we could, maybe we'll go off skiing, or maybe we're just doing fun taking a break and just getting so finding, you know, parents really looking in the mirror and really wondering why they're doing what they're doing, and kids looking for burnout. We really didn't even get into injuries, but how many kids are getting injured at so much of a, from repetitive motion. You hear about kids, 12, 13, 14 getting Tommy John surgery
Right.
out their knee, just on fatigue and getting tendonitis at a young age, and different things that, you're rehabbing all this stuff because they're doing too much. So trying to find that piece, and making sure that whatever your kid is doing, your litmus test is he having fun? Is this a healthy learning, positive learning experience? Because if they're not, then they shouldn't be doing it. And it should be the running. It should get the feedback. My kid, kids aren't having fun. They're not really learning much about life. You know, it's just, it's not a positive experience. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. All right. So your stance is, you don't think that there is much in the way of integration. Um, so,
It's got to be, to me, the kid, who loves soccer, who's just passionate about soccer, needs to be able to play with his high school buddies, but then can do the club circuit in the giving kids the season off from clubs and things when they're in season playing for their school. To
mhm,
It would be the one that to me is the most likely. Uh,
yeah.
I think that to try to find some detente there that everybody can get along, but also scrutinizing these clubs, and are they really doing a good job by kids? What is their mission statement? Do they have one? I mean, I have also heard, parents having a mission statement about their kids. What is this sport going to do for my kid when he reaches, adulthood, 21 or 20, what will this help him be a better person and a better adult? Really thinking about that rather than, oh God, I got to take him to the 4 a.m. practice because, he won't, this is a shot at the NHL,
Yeah, yeah,
which got to get this college scholarship craziness out of people's heads.
yeah. So I do think that's an important one that needs to, and actually I have a couple high school athletes in here now that are getting looked at by various colleges in various sports, and they're saying even the landscape of scholarships are changing because they said something about uh, Title IX. I have to look into this a little bit more, but they're saying that there is a redistribution of scholarships, and certain sports don't have as many as they used to, or aren't going to be getting as many as they were. And that in and of itself is completely shifting, let's say, that 1%, even more so. So I do think a clear message from both these organizations and schools of what the reality is. The small percentage, even if you take away scholarships for a second, if you say and reveal to people the small percent of people that go on to play NCAA athletics, and I'm saying at a Division One, two, and three level, it's very small, very small. Meaning,
It is.
meaning if you play at an NCAA level at any one of those one, two, or three, you are amongst the minimum, or you're amongst the few in society. And then going beyond that, like you said, you know, you obviously were talking about Jason Tim, I mean, the tip of the spear, yes, but I really think there needs to be a greater education of reality.
Big time reality. And also, a lot of kids who will play and may not be, they're bench sitters. Do they really want to sit on a bench for 4 years and miss out? And they don't have a scholarship. Let's say they don't have a scholarship, but they made the team and you know, but the reality is they're never going to be a starter. They're always going to be the guy, clapping when they come off the bench and practicing and getting up and lifting at 6 a.m. in the morning kind of thing. Do they want that as their college experience?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
or would they be better? Are they better served, playing club or whatever, and enjoying their college experience in a different
I
way?
I could honestly see it going both ways. There was a kid that was on the high school football team. He wound up walking on as a practice player to Alabama football.
Wow.
And I don't know if you know this, I had no idea, but they have tryouts for the practice team at Alabama. And I mean, if that is not unreal, I don't know what is. But so he was amongst a very small few who actually made the practice team. And he was treated very well by the team. He was treated great by the players. He felt like he was a part of it. It was a great college experience for him. And I've also had the opposite, not just with myself, but like other examples that you're talking about with people that have had a terrible go in college athletics. Because when I played from 98 to '02, it was a business. now it's even more so a business than ever before. So it's very intense.
And I just hope all these kids come out feeling good about whatever experience that they did. You know, it's, it's, to me, that's the biggest piece, you
Yeah,
know, enjoy their, did they enjoy their time doing what they did, and did they learn something? And the adults in the room, the administrators and the coaches, are they doing best by their athletes?
yeah,
All their athletes, not one or two, but all of them.
yeah,
That's really going to be, that's the real test, and that's what you know the consumer, which is the parents. That's really the parent job is making sure they get their kid into a program that they feel really good about. And you hear about those, and there's so many incredible programs out there, and there's so many kids having great experiences in sports,
yeah,
loving it, and just you know brings them together, and a bunch of them still keep playing, whether it's in the getting older. I played basketball up until a few years ago, playing basketball or hockey, you know, playing soccer leagues. I mean, there's so much of that stuff out there. And kids, they are, they aren't the individual. We didn't really even touch much on the individual sports, which I worry about. A lot of the Olympians and a lot of the people burning out on those young people just
yeah.
ride on the tennis circuit. It's just just a lot of stress, unneeded stress there, which is at least a team thing. You've got a team, you're with other kids, and hopefully that's a positive experience. For most kids it is a really positive.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to touch on? Because I think, maybe as you're thinking, summing this whole, you know, hour and 25 minutes up is sports.
I want to I started, which is
Yeah,
now if kids can say, man, that was a fun season. And I always loved, when we would end, especially soccer, we would go to this tournament and we'd end, and the kids would be like, God, I wish we had one more day.
yeah,
One, yeah, that's the feeling you want to instill. Just, just one more time, just to be together, to create a feeling of a team. And those are the greatest the coaches I admire the most, that create a team thing where they feel, God, the kids just love being together
yeah,
and just enjoy that ride so much. And it always ends. And and to have that feeling, that memory of all that, to me, that's what for my teacher, that's what I miss most,
yeah,
is that joy, just being with those kids. Oh man, I wish we had one more day, rather than, oh, thank God the season's over, and oh wow, we have 2 days and we start up the next round of whatever, that reaching a peak and an ending and just feeling so good about it. Boy, that's, if we can strive for that, the learning and the and the healthy development that kids are getting out of those type of situations is priceless.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Sports are a tool that drives us in life, and if we can facilitate that, and if we can help develop that, I think it will be less about the scholarships, it will be less about the monies and the trophies and the accolades. It will be more of, I remember that team, and this is what I learned, and because of that I'm better at such and such. And you always remember the best coaches, and you also always remember the worst coaches too. And I think it's important to understand the importance of each role in this cog of the athlete, the parent, the coach, the organization, that at the end of the day, if they can focus on all getting better, that it will all lead to a bigger wheel to roll for a really long time.
And just and really create a bunch of amazing young people that are going to take over, be the leaders and be in our society.
Mhm.
Just creating a really healthy society if we do that,
Yeah,
and giving opportunities and feeling good about themselves, you know, and not, you know, feeling bad about themselves or hurting themselves or not, reaching the potential or using drugs or, various other things to mitigate their pain, but really be able to feel good about who they are and be resilient and deal with the issues that invariably come up in our lives.
yeah,
Giving them a toolbox that they can take with them after they leave so that they can be really happy, healthy, and successful.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's a great end right there. I I enjoyed every moment with you at Fen. I enjoy every moment with you now after Fen, and I am grateful for your willingness to do this and for all that you continue to do and seek to do. So I appreciate you.
Well, I so appreciate what you're doing, our friendship, being able to do this podcast, starting this long overdue conversation
Yeah,
happened, and maybe getting people on board to try to take care of our kids. I mean, that's our job.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much, and we will we will look to do more of this in the future and have this grow. So
It's been an honor.
thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.